What you're seeing isn't a match like the others, because tonight, for the first time ever, I'm going to manage to stop my father, a legend of arm wrestling. It doesn't sound like much when you say it like that, but when you realize how present my father was on the world stage, it's crazy that at 16 years old, I can give him a good fight. Is victory ever realistic? Will I manage to beat him before he gets too old? To answer that question, we first need to look at Joseph Tough Lovey, the French arm wrestling legend. He was born 50 years ago in a small village in Hungary. His family was poor, and his father left before he was even born. He was born into hardship, and nothing ever came easy. Before the age of 10, he had to chop wood, he was sleeping with his dog to stay warm, and he didn't have boots that fit him, so he had to wear pink boots, size 46. Today, when he talks about all that, he does it with a smile, but that doesn't mean it was easy. He was a very turbulent kid, and despite his small size, he never let anyone push him around. At 19, he managed to leave Hungary to try to build a better life in France. He met my mother on his very first day in France and told himself, "I want her to be my wife." And 3 years later, they got married. And that good news was quickly followed by another, because not long after, they had their first child together. After that, he lived a quiet life. He worked in very physical jobs. First, he unloaded sacks of flour from trucks, 500 sacks of 50 kilos. That was his daily life. Then, he moved into construction, where he quickly became the best worker in the company. And a little bit later, a second child came along, but that's when everything changed. 6 months later, at 29 years old, he became seriously ill. He lost nearly 25 kilos and had to have his entire colon removed. Despite pain he describes as the worst of his entire life, he didn't lose hope. And as soon as he was able to stand again, he started doing push-ups in the hospital. By gaining the 25 kilos back in just a few months, he managed, once again, to get back on his feet. It was in 2007 that his passion for arm wrestling was born, almost at the same time as me. But it wasn't until 2014 that he officially became a huge name in arm wrestling by beating Yanis Amolins, who is quite simply the most technical arm wrestler in the world. That win was followed by many others that earned him European and even World Champion titles, both right and left arm. But beyond those titles, my father is mostly known for this. From the outside, you might think he's crazy, and that's not completely wrong. He told me many times that before every important match, he would work himself into such a state of anger that even he doesn't recognize himself. And the stronger the opponent, the more that rage consumes him. It's like a challenge. When nobody believes in him, he has to prove them wrong. That mindset is what allowed him to reach such a high level and what gave him the nickname, the Tough. But as you can imagine, that temperament divides spectators. Some people think he overdoes it, others think that's exactly what makes his matches so interesting. So now you know who Joseph Lovey really is. And to wrap up this introduction, I think we can say that he is one of the arm wrestlers with the greatest fighting spirit and mental strength. At first, our rivalry only existed in one direction. I started arm wrestling at only 13 years old, so of course, back then, I wasn't a real threat for my father. Except I already had that hunger to win. The same unbreakable will that took my father to the top was already there, deep inside me. It's stronger than me, I want to surpass him. No, I have to surpass him. At first, yeah, it's an ego thing. But more than anything, it's to make him proud. To show my father that his son can give everything in a field he devoted his entire life to. Unfortunately, at that time, I was too young, too weak, and above all, too inexperienced. I could give everything in training, it still wasn't enough. I had to be patient. And I remember it clearly. That's when I set myself a goal. I had to beat my father before I turned 18. And that promise, made on my trampoline, would follow me for years. In 2022, I compete in my first official arm wrestling tournament. I decide to enter a regional open, and I take first place on the left arm in the adult category. That's when I tell myself there's something to do here, that I'm really good at this sport, and that with my father's advices, I can reach the very highest level. From that moment, I change training sessions and competitions. And then, in February 2023, my father starts feeling pain in his chest and his arm. After a week of suffering every single morning, he decides to go to the hospital. But they send him home with nothing but a simple painkiller. 1 week later, he has a heart attack. With a family history of heart problems he didn't know about, it could happen, but he could have been taken care of much earlier. And because of that medical mistake, only 30% of his heart is functional. That whole story triggered autoimmune diseases like Crohn's disease and Hashimoto's. At that moment, doctors advised him to stop arm wrestling completely. He will take medication for the rest of his life. At that time, I was extremely disappointed. My dream of beating my father in his prime might never happen. But that injury turned out to be a new beginning. Overnight, he quit smoking and started going to rehab at least 3 times a week. At first, even walking while carrying groceries bag was difficult for him. But, like I said, my father isn't someone who just accepts defeat. So, thanks to his efforts and persistence, he manages to return to a normal state. Still far from being able to come back to arm wrestling, but enough to be able to work again. And that's when I realized even more that his strength isn't only physical, it's also hugely mental. 6 months after those events, we head to Kazakhstan, the countries of arm wrestling, where I'm going to compete at my first World Championships. Yeah, because 5 months earlier, I had pulled off a surprising performance at the French Championships. Two gold medals in juniors and a silver medal in seniors, which proved my value to France. And sure enough, I managed to climb to 5th place in the junior rankings. It's August 23rd, 2023, and by that date, my father is recovered and ready to compete again, even if the doctors don't recommend it. So you might imagine he's going to come back slowly, against weaker opponents, or in less prestigious tournaments. But today, my father is just minutes away from facing the best arm wrestlers in his category at the World Championships. In his mind, if he's there, then he has to compete. It was stronger than him. You're probably thinking he has no chance, but that's because you don't know him. With the heart functioning at 60%, a forced break from training, and a Kazakh bacteria that would send him to the hospital a few days later, he takes 2nd place on the left arm and 3rd place on the right arm in Master 80 kilos, while being the oldest in his category. That's simply an exceptional performance. And it's that self-sacrifice, which he proudly passed on to me, that leads me in December 2023 to challenge him. You can see it right away on our faces. The stakes aren't the same. On one side, a father who still doesn't realize the warrior he created. On the other, a teenager who wants to show his father how much he has progressed. The first round happens pretty fast. By faking a press, I created a gap in his fingers that allowed me to hit a quick top roll. Second round, he doesn't fall for it the same way. He sets up to defend both my top roll and my hook. And sure enough, he stops me 2 fingers away from the pad. I managed to absorb his hits, but not for long. He takes a second round from me. And in the 4th round, When we got to the strap, he even manages to take my wrists. Even if he got respectable result at Worlds, at that stage my father was still coming back from very low. So yeah, I didn't live a hard life and I'm far from having my father's mental strength. But that loss motivated me even more. I have many flaws, laziness being one of them. But when I truly find motivation for something, I do everything I can to achieve it. That's what I wanted to prove to him. And for that, nothing beats quality equipment. I chose Titan Grip a few months ago and I can't live without it. First of all, they make handles that helps you become insanely powerful in arm wrestling at really reasonable prices. For example, with the wrist you can train your cupping to build a real anti-top rope barrier. You want to dominate hook pullers? Choose the T-handle to work your pronation with unmatched comfort. Or maybe you're a top roller and you're tired of getting your wrist taken by people like you. In that case, the multi-spinner is made for you and for many other situations. You can train like Todd Chings. If that's not a solid argument, who wouldn't want to be as powerful as Uncle Todd? But Titan Grip isn't just handles, it's a brand built for arm wrestling. You don't have a table? Right now, you can get this training table for only 370 euros. And for 280 more, you can get an adjustable height pulley system for Christmas. No more tricks to reach the right strength angles. No more twisting yourself into weird position just to recreate the situation you want. But that's not all. You can get 10% off with my code Ethan10. The link is in description. Okay, your spelling goes down thanks to my codes, but my strength in 2024 only keeps rising. Remember, I had just lost, but in that moment, I saw that the dream I'd had for almost 4 years was close to becoming real. But for my father, this year is not starting as planned. For the first time in almost 20 years of arm wrestling, he finishes last. Contrary to what you might think, it wasn't really an age problem. Because in training, he was still beating me very easily. No, that championship was simply a bad preparation. Because even after all this time, my father still thinks about training and tests new things. And it turns out the program he made for himself wasn't beneficial. He stopped training too early, which made his strength drop drastically during those European championships. At that moment, it's chaos in his mind. With no perspective on the situation, even he starts to doubt. Should he stop arm wrestling? Finally give his place to the new generation? No, for him it's a new challenge. He's going to prepare for Worlds, harder and stronger than ever. He decides to rethink our training and add something essential, real situations. Every Friday, after 3 days of specific training, we face someone at our level at the club in a super match. A 5-round match where the first 3 wins the fight. It's a pretty controversial type of training. People see it as too risky for injuries. And when you see the kind of matches we're talking about, it makes sense. It's intense. The truth is, it depends a lot on who we're talking about. With experience, this kind of training can work for many arm wrestlers. It helps develop many key aspects for competition. Stress, setup, technique, starts, and in our case, it's this rivalry that will take us to the highest level of the World Championships. So one of our first matches is this. It doesn't have the same dynamic at all. This time, it's my father who has to prove his strength again. Because after his European results, most people could have thought about retirement. But that match was going to be harder than expected for me. I still managed to steal 2 rounds. But when I could have won in the 3rd round, I decided to provoke him. and that sends my father into a crazy rage. The problem is, my father is like a diesel engine. He starts slow, but once he's going, you can't stop him. And that's what makes him so strong in confrontation like super matches. The match ends with a 3-2 score for my father. Our strengths had never been so close, and as you can imagine, that's what changes everything. A week later, we go again. I take the first round, but from the second one, things get serious. From there, we get pulled into a war of technique and strength. We both go outside and I end up winning the top. He transitions inside. He manages to take my pronation, so I decide to transition into a press. I make a strategic elbow foul to hope to win on a restart. And he ends up winning the match. You might think I would be disappointed after that, but no. I had never enjoyed arm wrestling this much. At that time, I spent every week waiting for that confrontation. The matches get closer and closer. Despite my constant progress thanks to my young age, he manages to keep the gap. It's like his motivation lets him go even further. And it proved itself the week after, when he beats me 5-0. The matches are brutal, yes, but even the small margin I had in the first fight had disappeared. A crushing win while I was at my highest level. It's 2 months later that we leave for the World Championships. The preparation is perfect, those matches for just physically and mentally. And after fighting face to face, we're ready to fight side by side. And it's an achievement. I become the first French junior in history to win a medal at the World Championships. I take 3rd place on the left and 4th place on the right. I am clearly among the strongest. But when the level gap is small, anyone can end up on the podium, because you chain matches more or less non-stop at the Worlds. You can have a war against someone at your level early on, then lose to someone weaker right after. That's the whole difficulty of arm wrestling. And then there are the master categories. Those are age categories starting at 40, increasing every 10 years. My father should compete in Master 1, meaning athletes from 40 to 50 years old. But you're starting to know him. That's not his style. So he competes in Senior 75 with the young guys. And despite all his health problems and he's 49 years old, he officially becomes 6th in the world in his category. But there are 2 things I didn't tell you. On top of the junior category, I also competed in Senior 70 kilo on the right arm. And in my whole life, even up to the moment I'm recording this video, it's the best performance I've ever done. At 17 years old, I got 4 wins against the strongest athletes from their respective country. It was the best senior performance of the French team that year. I made history twice. Unfortunately, things didn't go as well for my father. His championship was affected by a new issue. His wrist was hurting. But it wasn't just a normal wrist pain. My father isn't just anyone. We discovered 3 months later that it was actually broken. When he tells the surgeon he thinks his wrist is broken, in a condescending tone, she tells him, "You wouldn't be able to work or arm wrestle with a broken wrist, that's impossible." but that's because she doesn't know him. My father was right. After a few tests, we discovered his scaphoid was broken and his ligaments were torn. He's too old, it's irreparable. And the doctors tell him he's going to lose mobility over time. So we postponed the fight for later. But you're starting to know my father. It's not over.
Second elbow foul.
I just lost my last chance to win a junior world champion title. After 1 year of training and fights more intense than ever, I lose in the dumbest way. Without meaning to, I lift my elbow off the pad, which means a foul. 2 fouls and I lose the match. You can see the sadness, both in my eyes and in my father's voice.
Qu'est-ce que tu m'as fait? Mais qu'est-ce que tu m'as fait?
It's a very hard moment for me, but I had to stay strong, because a few days later I was competing in seniors. This year I compete in 75 kilos, and in that category there are 2 very important people. The first is Daniel Prokopchuk, the strongest lightweight arm wrestler in the world for years. This guy is so dominant that he allows himself to look his opponent in the eyes first, before slowly but surely bringing them to the pad. So if I face him, it's over. But even more important, in this category you already know, there's my father. After a month of recovery, he's finally ready to compete again. We start fighting with the hope of advancing without facing each other, because that would mean eliminating one another. And then, we both run into the guy we absolutely didn't want to face, Daniel Prokopchuk. With no real certainty of success, I still go all in. I hit a flop press that makes him commit an elbow foul. And then, in the strap, this happens. I stop him, and that's an achievement not many people can say they've done. Unfortunately, I commit an elbow foul that forces me to restart the match. He beats me, and right after, my father faces him. And unlike all his other matches, he recognizes how dangerous my father is. He gives absolutely everything he has. And unfortunately, my father can't stop him. I finish 10th place, just ahead of my father who finishes 11th. We still live with great memories from that championship. And back home, I struggle a lot to get back into training. I'm preparing for a big championship and I've had heavy pain since words. And I make the same mistake my father made the year before. Bad preparation. And even worse competition. But it's exactly those kinds of events that makes us move forward even more. We question everything and we come back even stronger. It's during that period that I feel progress. Something that makes me think it's time. Same room, same table, but our eyes aren't the same anymore. I finally managed to defeat my father, but I didn't expect to dominate so much. And I don't even have time to think because new challenges appear. My father asked me to go straight into 2 more matches, no rest. I faced the French champion in the 90 kg category, and then the vice champion of the same category right after. And with no problem, I managed to beat them. It was proof of the phenomenal level I had reached in just a few months. It's strange, but I'll be honest. After that, it's not easy in my head. I made my father proud, I achieved my dream, but now what? I need something deeper than a title. something more emotional. I'm going to keep progressing and my father is going to keep aging. All those great moments we spent fighting, can I still live them? Will fight with that much emotion and intensity still be possible? Like Bakugo learning that his greatest rival lost his powers, I cried. And now, I tell myself we'll always have just as many great moments in training and in future competitions, and that it doesn't change that much. It's very cliché, but I've never understood the phrase, it's not the destination, it's the journey, as well as I do now. To end this video, I want to thank my father, who introduced me to his patience and made me live so many great moments through arm wrestling. Dad, I know you watch all my videos, and I've been worrying you a lot lately, and I'm sorry. My goal will always be to make you proud, and I promise I'll give everything I have in what I do so I don't cause you problems and I don't worry you even more than this. Thank you for everything you've done for me. I'm eternally grateful.